What a wild week it's been, or was, for KU basketball. 4 commits in 7 or 8 days, depending on how you count them, for Bill Self. Sets them up in a pretty good spot for their future rosters. They look to have a pretty good season this year as well. We'll get into all that and recapping the week that was of one of the best weeks of KU basketball recruiting ever on Locked On Jayhawks.
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on? Derek Johnson here. This is Locked On Jayhawks. Thanks for making it your first listen every day. And thank you to everydayers catching each and every episode of the show. We are free and available anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page where you can like and subscribe to the show. And on today's edition of LOJ, we're recapping the wild week of KU basketball recruiting, one of the best weeks ever in KU basketball recruiting, and for just like a 1 week span. What's next on the trail possibly for KU? And we'll also get into some of the latest news, including some unfortunate KU football injury news and what's going on with some of the other sports like KU volleyball and KU soccer. So in case you missed it, Kansas basketball and Bill Self had quite the recruiting haul. Might be fun to go to a game when all those players are here. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase with Game Time. But 4 commits in tow coming on for Bill Self and company. So we start with Sunday, not this past Sunday, the Sunday before, the last Sunday in September. Taylen Kinney, the 5-star recruit in the class of 2026, number 1 point guard in the class, he commits to KU. And Kinney is expected to come in and, be one of the better players on next year's roster as the number 1 point guard, a guard who can kind of create his own shot and make things happen himself. Somebody who is able to hit shots off the pull-up, somebody who's just going to come in and continue to give Kansas future pro talent at the point guard position. Then we fast forward to last Wednesday, and Trent Perry, a 4-star recruit in the class, who's kind of more of an, high potential recruit who could be a long-term player for KU, has a 7'1" wingspan on the wing. Shot is definitely a work in progress, but profiles to potentially being an elite defender and rebounder and somebody who is going to kind of be able to give you kind of a wing 4 for KU. And if you can develop the shot, then you end up with a star player possibly there for Trent Perry, but at the very least profiles to being kind of a long-term solid role player for KU in a lot of different ways. And, as you build out your recruiting class, not every player, you're not going to be able to money-wise be able to bring in every player who's the number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4 recruit in the country. You got to fill it out with players who, A, are going to help you build your future rosters, but are also going to, be willing to put into the work, have potential to be, something for you at some point in their career, but also, fill out and give you that depth as a roster. Then you fast forward to Friday of this past week, and you get a commit in the class of 2027 in Javon Bardwell, who is a 5-star commit in the class of 2027. Bardwell was a former guard who grew a bunch over the summer of 2024. Now he's like a 6'6" wing who's really good athletically and kind of floats in the air, can create his own shots off the bounce, has a good, dexterity package around the rim and finishing with both hands. Bardwell is somebody too who could potentially reclassify into 2026. So, maybe this is all part of the class of 2026, but at least gives Kansas optionality to be like, hey, we're recruiting this class pretty well. Like, we might not need you in 2026. We might need you more in 2027 if we, Taylen Kinney comes in and he's a one and done, right? Or you can load up in 1 year. And then it finished off with this past Sunday, Davion Adkins, a 4-star recruit, number 3 center in the class, committing to KU. Kind of a Flory Badunga starter pack in terms, he's a lefty who's like a 6'8", 6'9" center, really good hops, really long wingspan, like a 7'2" wingspan. There's a lot that's similar between Adkins and Flory Badunga. And so now you total it up. That is 2 5-star recruits, 2 4-star recruits in the span of a week for KU, one in the class of 2027, who again might move to 2026, but also Adkins, the fact that 4 stars aren't always created equal in a way. Like Adkins is closer to being a 5-star recruit potentially than like Perry, if you're talking about like Adkins, the number 3 center. But that is quite the recruiting haul for KU overall, obviously. And how this all comes together, I think, is very interesting. When you look at how Bill Self recruited the transfer portal this year, Melvin Council, very quick athletic guard. Jaden Dawson is a solid athlete for 2-3. Cole Rosario, who you get as a reclass player, very good athlete on the outside. All the big men that you have, Flory Badunga, Bryson Tiller, Paul Mbia, all guys with like 7'2" plus wingspans. Simis Calderon, really good athlete. Darren Peterson, just good at everything. But yes, he's a good athlete as well. And then you already have guys like Flory Badunga and Marco Jackson who are good athletes on the roster. Bill Self has built this roster for KU this year to be a very athletic basketball team. And I think that is in direct response to some of the recent years in which he's felt like they've been a bit lacking there. And so, you know, when you look at Bill Self from that perspective, he is somebody who is going to, you know, react to that in a way with how he's going to build his future rosters. And, you know, that's something that I think you saw in the transfer portal. And now I think you're seeing it again in the class of 2026, because you're talking about Taylen Kinney, number one point guard in the class. I don't think Kinney is John Wall or Kyrie Irving with his speed, but like, you don't get to be the number one point guard in the class by just being like a bad athlete. Like, he's clearly at least a good athlete in what you're bringing in there. You could potentially have a Marco Jackson on that team. So that would be another really good athlete. You look at Davion Adkins. That's a player who is going to be about as athletic as they come from the center position. You look at Trent Perry. Trent Perry, another player who, yes, the shot is kind of the big question there. And what is he going to do in half court as an offense? But like, the athleticism is not at all a question. That dude is a very good athlete. And then Javon Bardwell, good athlete as well. It continues a theme for me that this is how Bill Self wants to build his rosters moving forward. And we've seen different iterations over the years as Bill Self has adjusted to the times and the game and what he's wanted and what's been able to come in and recruiting and stuff, that he will adjust. That you know, this doesn't mean this will be the final iteration, but we don't know how many more years Bill Self has as the head coach of Kansas. It feels like to me the remaining rosters we're going to see with Bill Self at Kansas are going to involve very, very athletic teams and players. And it's not just the athleticism, it's the length. Taylen Kinney, he's like a 6'1" guard, but he has like a 6'6" wingspan. Trent Perry, 6'4" wing. He has like 7'1" wingspan. I don't know what Bardwell's wingspan is, but just watching some of the tape, it's probably a plus wingspan of the guy who's already like 6'6", 6'7". Davion Adkins, again, has a 7'2" wingspan. And again, you look at what they built out of the portal here. And Bia added on as a 7'9" wingspan. Cole Rosario with a plus wingspan. Melvin Council is a plus wingspan. Marco Jackson coming back in has a plus wingspan. Flory Badunga has a plus wingspan. Those are two things that I think Bill Self is going to do, and that I find in the theme of this class right now, and I find is the theme of the rosters being put together for KU. It feels like that is what Bill Self is going to. Athleticism and length. And he's kind of saying, you know what? We'll find the role players to fit around that. We'll find enough shooting to fit around that. We'll find enough of the other things to make it work. But if I get a bunch of dogs, if I get a bunch of dudes who are long, if I get a bunch of dudes who are athletic, we're going to be good in transition. We're going to be good on the glass. We're going to be good defensively. And it gives me just a lot of different things I can do schematically on the defensive end of the floor by having all of that. And I think that's why Bill Self wants to coach it. And I think that's what you see here with this pretty special recruiting class. Let's take a deeper dive, though, into what that roster looks like potentially for 2026, 2027. I know we're focused on the start of this season, and we should be. Darren Peterson's going to be awesome, but it's fun to look ahead, too, especially when you have as much talent burgeoning with this recruiting class coming in. So we'll look ahead to that a little bit and then get to some of the latest news. This is Locked on Jayhawks. Today's episode of LOJ is brought to you by Prize Picks. Every day we make decisions, but on Prize Picks, being right can actually get you paid. That's right. Don't miss the excitement of the football season with Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Playing Prize Picks is such a fun, simple way to add more excitement to football. You just pick more or less on player projections, like Josh Allen passing yards, or Saquon Barkley rushing for a touchdown, or Jalen Daniels, more passing yards, and you're in the game. My favorite part, Prize Picks added a new mode called Stacks. So if you want to ride with one player and be like, okay, this player is going to get this many pass yards, rush yards, and touchdowns, put that all in one lineup. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it is good to be right. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. Check out Locked On College Football for your second listen every day. You can give me a follow on Twitter at DJohnsonRadio, at LL_Jayhawks on our Twitter account there. Okay, so first of all, first question to this with the recruiting class, are they done? I guess that's a very valid question to kind of have here. Are they done with this recruiting class? I think the answer is no. You know, we had an episode talking about Tyron Stokes over the weekend, and that seems to be one where, again, the steam seems to be, after signing a deal with Nike, that Kentucky or Oregon, probably Kentucky is going to be the way he goes. So that would obviously be the pipe dream, but one that I'm not really expecting. But I don't think it ends there. You've got a guy in Caleb Holt who's a top 5 recruit in the country that you've targeted to at least some degree here. Christian Collins is a top 10 recruit. He's another 4-man that would certainly make a lot of sense because that's the position Stokes played. You're losing Trey White. You don't really have another obvious 4-man on next year's roster. I guess, you know, I don't know. Essemies Calderon with another year of seasoning. Maybe he is the obvious 4-man. Maybe Bryson Tiller playing 2 big basketball because he can be a good 4-man in a 2 big lineup, right? So I guess maybe you do have a little bit more next year. Trent Perry, I guess, too, is deeper down the depth chart as guys who can play it. But Collins would make sense there. Top 10 recruit. Obviously has the ties with Tony Bland, your new assistant coach. Maybe even like another kind of, I don't know if this one's quite pipe dream of where Tyron Stokes is, because, Bruce Branch is the number 1 recruit in the class of 2027, I believe, over on 24/7 Sports. Bruce Branch the third. And he's the number 1 recruit in that class. He's playing, I believe, on the Adidas circuit. I could be wrong with that, but obviously that would be a good thing for KU being an Adidas school if that is the case. Maybe that's another fun pipe dream that you could get him to commit and reclassify, right? And then there's also Bardwell, who you could get to reclassify. There's some other players who they've had, visits or offers with or communication as 4-star recruits. Point being, there's enough out there that makes me think that Kansas isn't done in this recruiting class, that they're going to add one more player. Who knows? What if they even add 2 more players? What if they add one more player to be the filler and then like one other star player wants to come, or they reclass with Bardwell and that would make it 5. But like, it would not shock me if they had 4 or 5 players in this high school class. So no, I don't think they are done at this point in time for KU, and there could be another impact player. Who knows? Now, as far as the roster looks right now, without that potential other impact player, without, knowing who's going to go pro, without knowing who's going to transfer away off the current roster before, the following season, without, knowing what players are going to take a step over the season and look like they're going to be due for, a bigger role or have a bigger potential on the upcoming team and all that sort of stuff. You look at it right now, Kansas technically has 3 scholarships open for the 2026 to 27 roster. When you account for the 3 freshmen that would be joining, Kinney, Perry, and Adkins, and account for everybody who can come back, will come back, and figure there are 15 scholarship players. Now, that is not totally accurate because that is counting Darren Peterson as a sophomore. Darren Peterson's going pro after the year. So realistically, you have 4 scholarships open. And then I think the expectation is for Flory Badunga to go pro after this season, but also I remain that, like, you're not seeing Flory pop up in the top 15 of the draft. So like, if Flory is projected to go 37th in the draft, does he go to the draft? He could, or does he come back and get paid and by KU and get a lot of money, right? Like, I'm not completely ruling it. I guess I'm viewing Badunga as more of like a 60-40. I'm expecting him to go pro, but whatever. So let's say Badunga and Peterson both go pro. That would leave you 5 open scholarships at this point. So even if you do add 1 or 2 more high school recruits, you're still going to have a bunch of spots available for the transfer portal. Now, it's something where do you want to fill all 15 roster spots, or would you be better off having 13 or 14 where instead of paying, your 15th guy, I don't know how much the 15th guy is making, but even if it's $100,000 for your 15th guy with rev share, NIL or whatever, would that be better served to have 1 less roster spot and have an extra 100,000 you can use to, hey, we're tied with our bid with another school for this guy we want to be our 5th starter. Let's just throw an extra 100K at him. We win the bid. Would that be more valuable to KU? I guess that's something you have to figure out off season and is kind of dependent season to season. If you are looking at my early weight, I'm having a hard enough time projecting the 2025 to 2026 starting lineup. I think I feel good about Peterson, Flory, and Trey White in there. I don't feel great about the other 2. Is it going to be Council? Is it going to be Rosario? Is it going to be Elmarco Jackson? I don't know, like Jaden Dawson, right? I don't feel great about predicting that starting 5 right now. So why not even make it worse? Why not make a prediction for the 2026 to 27 starting 5, since I can't even get the 25 to 26? So I think right now you're looking at it as, okay, Taylen Kinney would be a true freshman coming in. Marco Jackson at that point would be a redshirt junior. And I've said this before, I would really like that backcourt because I think Kinney, I view as being somebody who can get his own shot, who can create. Marco is such a good athlete, and you have two guards with good wingspans. Marco can be such a good defender that it's going to help you as a young freshman and Kinney make that transition. And you'd have the experienced guy with Marco who can handle it sometimes with Taylen Kinney, who's the younger guy. I would really like that 1-2 duo between them. Then I have Cole Rosario. That's a typo. That should say sophomore, but Cole Rosario is year 2. Now, with all the Cole Rosario hype this year, if Cole Rosario ends up starting this year and ends up being this great connective piece with all these games, NBA scouts watching him next to Darren Peterson and Flory Badunga, and what if he does shoot 35% from 3 and averages 10 points per game, and they're like, you know what, we want to take a risk on Cole Rosario as being a draft pick. We're gonna try to sway him into the draft. Again, I don't know that that's the most likely outcome right now for a guy that a month ago we were talking about, will he be KU's 8th man? And now we're talking about, could he be a starter? But like, we've seen the story before, right? We've seen it with Johnny Furphy, So from that perspective, you never know. But Cole Rosario as a sophomore as the starter, I would really like that group of guards. Kinney is a freshman, Jackson is a 4th-year guy, 3rd-year playing, and Rosario is a sophomore. And then, again, you could go Samis Calderon as the 4. Bryson Tiller I have here playing a 2-big lineup as a redshirt sophomore next to whoever wins the center battle of Paul Mbia as a sophomore versus Davion Adkins as a freshman. And as you're looking at it, like, where do you think would be most likely? Again, if KU were to land a Christian Collins, I think you would pencil him into the starting lineup there. If KU were to go into the transfer portal and try to find like a starter in the portal, where would be the most likely position there? Again, we'll wait and see what Cole Rosario's season looks like. If it does end up being he's more of an 8th man, then maybe you do look for a starter at the 3. Maybe you do look for a big-time player at the 4 position to bring in, right? How does Paul Mbia look this year? What if Paul Mbia, you don't feel great about how he is as a backup center, and you're like, you know what, we want to bring in an experienced center to start in front of those guys to let them come along more organically. Those would all be positions that I'm early taking a highlight, a look at for those spots, but there's also a world where Paul Mbia is just a beast off the bench this year, or Flory comes back for another year, and then you don't have to worry about those things. So a lot of moving parts. There's so much that's going to happen, but that at least gives you a little bit of an early look at the roster for the following season. As it's pretty crazy how close they already are to having what that roster. Now again, it's going to change. You're going to have players who transfer away, and then there's going to be more scholarships, and there's going to be more opportunity. But right now, you actually have a decent look at what the 2026 to 2027 roster could look like. Because of all these commitments and recruits that Bill Self has already landed for this upcoming class. All right, let's continue on with some of the latest news. Unfortunate KU football injury news. KU women's basketball has been killing it on the recruiting trail as well. All that and more. This is Locked on Jayhawks. Today's episode of LOJ is brought to you by Game Time. College football's here. I don't know why you wouldn't be more excited for that, because the tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there is nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets sometimes can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, price jumps at checkout. That's why I use Game Time. It's the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay with Game Time. And one of the I don't know, my favorite things about Game Time is that you can see the seat views from the actual ticketing app. So like, if you're going to a stadium, you're going to a road game, maybe you're going down to Lubbock for the KU Texas Tech game. You've never been in that stadium before. You have no idea what the seat views are. You have no idea if it's good seat or not. You have no idea if there's an obstruction in front of you. Well, check it out on Game Time and you'll be able to see what the seat view looks like. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code Locked on College. LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Today's episode of Locked on Jayhawks is also brought to you by Square. This episode with Square, your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that make the neighborhood the neighborhood. These are the places that become an extension of the home. Whether it's a sports bar dedicated to your team's fan base, the spot with the best wings in town for game day, or that beloved local chain that's been rooted in the community for years, these businesses are what bring people together. When neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. Terrebonne is one of my favorite spots to eat in Lawrence. Unbelievable Cajun food. I love the po' boys, the gumbo, even the desserts there. You can get a great, everything at Terrebonne is awesome. They're always packed in there too, which deservedly so. Well, they use Square. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/lockedoncollege to learn more. That's square.com/go/lockedoncollege to learn more. But before you do, support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square. See you in the neighborhood. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Locked on Jayhawks. Again, you can find our show anywhere you get your podcasts, including on our YouTube page where you can like and subscribe. We'll have a KU Texas Tech crossover episode coming at you on Wednesday with Chris Level. Does great work over there with Locked on Texas Tech. Thursday, we'll have our KU Texas Tech preview. Friday, our KU keys to the game. And throughout the week, any other breaking news or important stuff, we'll get to that as well. We shared our KU basketball season preview that we did with Locked on College Basketball too on the feed here with Locked on Jayhawks. So you can check that out as well anywhere that you get your podcast and on our YouTube page. Okay, latest news. KU women's basketball. We've been talking recruiting today. They've been hitting the recruiting hard too. They already had a commitment from Molly Ernst. I don't know how to pronounce it, but she was like a good shooter from Indiana. Now they added a 4-star recruit from Brooklyn Wren. There we go. A 4-star recruit from the state of Indiana, top 70 player overall. KU's been recruiting very, very well in women's basketball here over the past couple of seasons. Go back to Samaya Nichols last year or this year. So they're bringing in a really good freshman class. Now you're backing it up, and they're in on some other big time players in the class. But Wren profiles to being kind of a wing 4. Really exciting. The classes they're stacking together. We'll see if they can turn it into something special here. On the football side, the London game became official for KU football. So they will officially be playing Arizona State in London. I've said this before. I don't love the idea from a team perspective. Not great from the travel and everything. Now, that aside, it's happening, so we move on with this. They're going to have to deal with it. They're going to have to find a way to overcome it. From the fan perspective, the fans who miss out on a home game because of it, yeah, that stinks. If you are a fan that is going to be able to make this happen, if you are a fan who's going to be able to, make the travel happen and afford the expenses of it and take the time off with work, good on you, because you're going to have a hoot. It's going to be a wonderful time for the people who are able to go out there. So, yeah, if anybody wants to fly me to England with you, I'm all for it, man. But yeah, should be a tough one too, because Arizona State's been a very good team. Although if Sam Levitt goes, I have no idea how they'll be next year. Anyway, the other football news, not as fun. Deshaun Hanukkah had surgery and he's out for the season. And just, man, feel so gutted for the kid. He's been, just the comeback he had to get back on the football field this year after not playing a game since 2022. And then he performs really well. He has the big Missouri game. He catches some touchdowns in different games. Just a bummer. And obviously it hurts KU too. Bowden Grown has played well for KU, but it just means the other guys, it was already a position that you wondered how deep was it going to be after you lost Keon Burnett in the portal late. You graduated a bunch of guys over the recent years, and now that gets even thinner. So good thing you added Grown, who's played well. Carson Brune continuing to have to, throw him into the fire as a young player. And those guys really have to grow up on the spot this season. From around some of the other sports for KU women's volleyball is now sitting at 11-7 on the season, 2-2 in conference play. That after they lost in 4 sets to TCU, who's a top 15 team, and then won a 5-set match against a ranked opponent on the road. They did it. I'm telling you, they were going to come, and this is going to be the start of it. They're going to start winning these 5-set matches, beating ranked teams. They beat Baylor in 5 sets. So 2-2 in conference, doesn't sound that great, but the losses are to number 8 Arizona State and number 12 TCU on the road. So they continue to profile looking like an NCAA tournament team. I don't know if they're going to be a hosting team, although the ranking says that they're going to be up there. If they start stacking together some wins, they certainly are going to have the strength of schedule to do it. And then KU soccer has suffered some of their first losses on the season. Overall record still good. They just lost 3-2 to number 10 TCU. Bounced back with a 4-1 win over K-State, and then lost 2-0 to number 18 Texas Tech. So again, kind of a tough part of the schedule for them. Overall, 2-3 in conference, but 8-3-2 overall. Again, you'd think they're trending to be an NCAA tournament team as well, and certainly we'll see if they can start racking together a big winning streak in Big 12 play to contend for the conference crown as well. That'll do it for this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. You can find our show anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page, where you can like and subscribe. We'll see you next time for another edition of KU football talk for our Locked On crossover episode of KU and Texas Tech. That tomorrow. See you then.